Yoichi Shigaraki. Yoichi Shigaraki is the very first user of One For All. He was the younger twin brother of Zen Shigaraki, better known as All For One. At first, everyone believed Yoichi was quirkless, but that turned out not to be the case. At birth, even All For One thought Yoichi had no quirk or meta abilities. In truth, he did have a quirk, but it didn't give him any flashy powers. It only allowed him to pass a quirk to someone else. When his brother forcefully gave him a power stockpiling quirk, the two abilities merged, creating One For All. From Yoichi, this power was passed down to several people. Quick warning though, there are manga spoilers ahead, so watch at your own risk. Yoichi and Zen were born to a woman from the Pleasure District, who didn't even realize she was pregnant until 8 months in. In that era, quirks were still new to the world. Weirdly, the woman had strange hardened growths on her left arm, and the pregnancy slowly drained her life. Apart from her unstable lifestyle, the reason she wasn't aware of her pregnancy is that she couldn't feel what had taken up residence in her uterus, which had begun sapping away her very life force. Zen took almost all the nutrients, leaving Yoichi small, weak, and frail. Their mother ultimately gave birth on a riverbank, but died there soon after. The growths on her arm, caused by her quirk, spear-like bones, vanished when young All For One, who already had the ability to steal quirks, took them for himself while holding Yoichi's arm. Right then, Yoichi and Zen were completely alone in the world. When rats showed up to start gnawing on their mother's corpse and the newborns, a flooding river swept the babies away. About a year later, news spread about the glowing baby, the first of many recorded cases of a quirk appearing in the world. As they grew older, Zen became cruel and powerful, while Yoichi's body stayed frail and weak. Even so, Yoichi wasn't afraid to stand up to his brother. When Zen used his quirk to hurt others, Yoichi threw a can at him to make him stop, even if it meant getting beaten for it. To Zen, Yoichi was nothing more than another possession. Even though Yoichi's body offered him no real value, Zen kept him close, unwilling to let go of something he considered his own. Yoichi spent most of his time reading comic books. He learned to read from them and was inspired by their heroes. Even after seeing Zen's evil side, he never gave up on him. Yoichi still believed that his brother once held him kindly as a baby. 3 years later, Zen eliminated the glowing baby in India and stole his quirk. While Yoichi admired heroes, Zen admired villains, and he wanted a world that existed only for him. 2 months later, Zen found Yoichi and the resistance group trying to escape through the sewers. Enraged, All For One put an end to his brother's life, leaving behind only his left hand. Yoichi's blood splattered onto his friend, Kudo, and that's when One For All was unknowingly passed down to him. Although he was once believed to be quirkless, Yoichi possesses one more quirk than ordinary people. Yoichi's original ability, called Quirk Bestowal, lets him transfer his quirk to others by giving them his DNA. It could only be passed on if the user willingly chose to give it up, making it one of the few quirks that All For One would struggle to steal. Because Yoichi's quirk was so weak and barely formed, people assumed he was quirkless. Even All For One's quirk sensor failed to detect it, and for a time, he thought he might have stolen it when they were babies. Later, he realized Yoichi did have one. It was just too insignificant to notice. When All For One gave Yoichi a power stockpiling quirk, thinking it was a power that even Yoichi's weak body could handle, it merged with his own and formed One For All. Yoichi first showed himself to Deku during the UA Sports Festival. When Shinso brainwashed Deku, Yoichi's presence caused One For All to react. Deku saw 8 shadowy figures before snapping his fingers, breaking free from Shinso's control. Later, Deku dreamed of all the previous users of One For All. There, Yoichi showed him his memories with his brother. He remembered refusing to accept Zen's idea of helping people by controlling them, giving strength to the helpless, claiming that his quirk is able to restore world order. Rather than smash him into the afterlife, All For One chose to hold Yoichi captive, despite the latter's desire to rebel. Even when imprisoned, Yoichi never submitted and barely ate the food Zen brought him. Yoichi tried to show Deku more of the memory, but couldn't because Deku could only use about 20% of One For All at that time. Before the vision ended, Yoichi reminded him that he wasn't alone. As One For All grew stronger, the vestiges of its previous users began taking solid form. They could finally speak to each other, and Yoichi told Deku he might be the last wielder of their power. In chapter 423, Yoichi and All For One met again inside the vestige world. Thanks to Deku's control over the transfer process, adjusting the power transfer so that a small fragment of One For All remained, a small ember of Yoichi's consciousness reawakened. All For One was furious that he could no longer see Yoichi's face, only a fading spark. He begged him not to leave, saying he loved him and couldn't live without him. Yoichi regretted never being able to guide him in the right path, but it was too late. In the end, Yoichi and the other predecessors joined forces with Deku's will, crushing All For One completely inside the Vestige realm. Toshitsugu Kudo. Kudo is the second user of One For All and the leader of the resistance that stood against All For One. Kudo's original quirk was called Gear Shift. It allowed him to control the speed or acceleration of anything he touched, even ignoring the laws of inertia. At first, it was weak and could only affect small objects, barely strong enough to act like a slingshot or pea shooter. That's why All For One saw his resistance as insignificant. After merging with the power stored inside One For All, Gear Shift evolved into something far overpowered. Thanks to One For All's stockpiling power, Gear Shift could now affect larger targets, even working down to the cellular level. Basically, its scope broadened. When Deku inherited it, he could shift into different gears to change speed and power, like low gear, second gear, third gear, and top gear. Using these, his attacks hit so fast that the sound seemed delayed. At its strongest, Deku used Gear Shift Overdrive, which he described as 120% of One For All's power. With this ability's transmission, he unleashed an overpowered Detroit Smash. With Gear Shift and the power built up within One For All, Deku was even able to use Detroit Smash quintuple against All For One. Upon activation, Deku's body emits a glow. But when he delivers a lighter blow compared to his overpowered smash with Overdrive, the glow either doesn't appear or fades too quickly for even All For One to notice. When Deku activates Gear Shift, he imagines shifting a vehicle's gear lever, making a sharp ka-chak sound. However, pushing this ability too far damages his body. His cells practically overheat, his oxygen drops, and he can't move until he recovers. For Deku, Gear Shift should be used as a last resort due to its drawback. Before all this, Kudo led the resistance against All For One during the earliest days of quirks. When he rescued Yoichi, who had been held captive by All For One, Yoichi started treating him as one of his heroes. Moments before dying, Yoichi managed to pass One For All to him. Kudo immediately felt the change. His body basically now carried two quirks, his own Gear Shift and the newly merged One For All. From then on, Yoichi's will lived inside him. But because he's the first successor of the power, the increase in strength thanks to power stock was not yet overpowered. To All For One, Kudo was the man who stole his precious possession. Naturally, All For One hated him to the core. When he eliminated Kudo, he made sure his bloodline ended too. Leaving nothing to chance, he erased every woman and child connected to him. That's why he couldn't believe Kudo's blood might have been running through Bakugo's veins. If they were truly related, All For One would have sensed it the moment they met. In the end, Bakugo isn't Kudo's descendant. Although their eyes look similar, it's just a coincidental resemblance. Somehow, Bakugo inherited Kudo's will. Inside the Vestige world, Yoichi once asked Kudo and Bruce Lee for their cooperation to help Deku unlock One For All's full power. At first, they refused. Kudo explained that he came from the harshest era in history, the height of All For One's rule, when losing a battle meant death. While those under All For One's control were unaware, Kudo had doubts about the future. To fight back against All For One's influence, he gathered allies and led a rebellion. He had fought countless wars, taking many lives to resist All For One's control. So to him, Deku's desire to save Shigaraki Tomura felt like a ridiculous delusion. Hearing this, Yoichi grew sad. He reminded Kudo of the day he reached out his hand to save him, even knowing he was their enemy's brother. Yoichi believes that if Kudo hadn't taken him away from his room on that day, their battle never could have begun. While One For All was born from their shared will to oppose All For One, it was the moment Kudo reached out his hand to Yoichi that the power truly came to life. Realizing this, Kudo finally chose to fight alongside Deku. Bruce Lee. On top of being the third user of One For All, Bruce is a major member of Kudo's resistance group against All For One. During the earliest era of quirks, Bruce lived through chaos. Because of All For One's growing power and control during that harsh era, Bruce joined Kudo's resistance to take All For One down. They fought together to free Yoichi from imprisonment, making them Yoichi's first true heroes. When All For One eliminated Yoichi, Bruce and Kudo saw it happen, and they barely managed to escape. Not long after, Kudo told Bruce his body had started to feel strange since the battle. Naturally, Bruce was worried that Kudo was touched by All For One, accidentally giving him another quirk. After checking, Bruce realized Kudo now carried two quirk factors. Eventually, All For One discovered that Yoichi's essence still lingered within Kudo and came after him. He wiped out the entire resistance, leaving Kudo as the last one standing. Before his death, Kudo managed to pass One For All to Bruce, who escaped with a few remaining allies. Bruce then looked for Hikage Shinomori to inherit the quirk. To protect him, Bruce fled overseas to draw All For One's attention away. Unfortunately, All For One ultimately found him and ended his life. Bruce's original quirk was Fa Jin. Basically, it lets him build up kinetic energy by repeating a motion, then releasing it as a sudden burst of strength and speed. Like other One For All quirks, Deku demonstrated Bruce's Fa Jin in action. Against Lady Nagant, he used it to close the distance faster. The best example is during the final battle with All For One, when Deku chained multiple quirks together. He switches from Gear Shift's low gear, sensing danger with the 4th's danger sense, hiding with the 6th smoke screen, gaining flight with float, and binding All For One with Black Whip. Finally, the energy from his earlier Detroit Smash quintuple recharged Fa Jin, letting him unleash another overdrive. In fact, Fa Jin became even more useful during Deku's trip to Okoto Island. When Deku was warped to Okoto Island, stranded over open water, he combined Float, Fa Jin, and Air Force to propel himself across the ocean. According to Kohei Horikoshi, Fa Jin was inspired by the real martial arts concept of releasing explosive power through precise minimal movements. Bruce's Fa Jin quirk is somewhat similar to the real-life martial arts concept of releasing built-up force, but the way it works in his case is still very different. Before deciding on Fa Jin, Kohei Horikoshi even considered calling the ability Charge Up instead. Hikage Shinomori. Hikage Shinomori was the 4th user of One For All. Unlike other holders, Shinomori lived most of his life in isolation, training his body and preparing the quirk for the next successor. Shinomori knew he wasn't strong enough to defeat All For One, so instead of fighting, he devoted his life to strengthening One For All. Because of that, the 5th user calls him a weirdo who abandoned modern society to live like a hermit. Physically, Shinomori had a strong muscular build from years of training. His strength was great enough to split boulders in half with ease. His original quirk was Danger Sense. This meta ability lets him detect incoming threats around him, giving him time to react. When the danger activates, the user feels a sharp pain in their head. Shinomori held One For All for 18 years, making him one of the longest users of the quirk, second only to All Might. During that time, he avoided All For One and focused on stockpiling more power. But as the years passed, cracks began appearing across his face and body. At first, he thought it was an illness, or maybe a sign that he hadn't trained enough. Although he says he died of old age, he actually died at only 40 years old. All Might later investigated his records and discovered the truth. It turns out that Shinomori actually died due to the quirk itself. Possessing multiple quirks had worn his body down. That's when All Might realized why he could handle One For All much longer. Because he was born quirkless, his body became a perfect vessel for it, while the earlier users couldn't handle the life-ending strain. Even long after his death, Shinomori's Danger Sense became one of Deku's most reliable tools. For example, it helped him react to attacks from enemies such as Lady Nagant, All For One, and Shigaraki. In the battle against All For One and Shigaraki, Deku even used Gear Shift, Fa Jin, and Danger Sense in parallel so he can go on the offensive. In chapter 411, when Shigaraki tried to grab Deku's face, Danger Sense alerted him just in time to dodge. But during that brief moment, Shigaraki managed to invade the Vestige realm. Shinomori was the first to sense the threat, and turned just as a massive hand appeared above them. As the others escaped, Shinomori blocked the hand, sacrificing himself. As a result, Shigaraki gained possession of Danger Sense. Daiguro Banjo, also known as Lariat, was the 5th user of One For All and a former pro hero. His original quirk is the first meta ability Deku has used from the other holders of One For All, and the one that saves his life the most during the final battle against All For One. Naturally, Banjo was a tough hero who kept fighting All For One's forces. Using his quirk Black Whip, Banjo could shoot out black energy tendrils from his arms. These tendrils gave him incredible mobility, letting him swing through the air, restrain enemies, and fight at close range. When combined with One For All's power, his combat style became fast and unpredictable. Eventually, his growing strength caught All For One's attention. Realizing that Banjo had inherited One For All One hunted him down. During their battle, Banjo was fatally injured after being trapped under rubble. According to Banjo, All For One tried to steal One For All twice. Once from him, and once from the 6th user, but failed both times. As Kohei Horikoshi explained, what Banjo meant was that All For One physically grabbed each of them while they possessed One For All, yet still couldn't take it away. Banjo's Black Whip later became one of Deku's main tools in battle. The first time Deku used it was during the joint training match against Class B. When he tried to unleash a Delaware Smash, One For All went out of control, and tendrils of dark energy burst out from his body. Deku couldn't control it and told everyone to run, until Ochako used zero gravity to steady him, and Shinso used brainwashing to calm him down. Inside the Vestige realm, Banjo appeared before Deku. He told him that while his quirk had finally awakened, he was using it wrong. Banjo urged him to get control over his heart, explaining that as One For All grows stronger, so will the quirks of its past users. Over time, Deku mastered Black Whip and combined it with other quirks for powerful moves. In Chapter 411, he used Fa-Jin and Gear Shift together with Black Whip to create a move called Black Chain. By wrapping himself in layers of Black Whip and focusing on defense, he could also block Shigaraki's deadly attacks, and even shoot tendrils underground to counter his decay, basically forming an anti-decay strategy that let him fight at close range. Against Lady Nagant, Deku used Black Whip's pinpoint focus to shoot out precise strands that tracked her based on her bullet trajectories. One of his most powerful combos, the Fox 100%, happened during that same battle. Basically, Deku combined One For All at 45% with Fa-Jin and Black Whip, storing up kinetic energy while blocking bullets, then releasing it all at once for a massive burst of speed. With the centrifugal force that comes with it, Deku moves so fast that he catches up to Lady Nagant's bullet mid-air. Before mastering that, Deku had overloaded his body by using too many quirks at once, such as One For All at 45%, Danger Sense, Smoke Screen, Black Whip, Fa-Jin, and Float, switching them on and off. After learning from that mistake, he focused on just 3, One For All, Black Whip, and Fa-Jin. With 1 leg's worth of Fa-Jin stored up, he then used Fox 100%, Manchester Smash to shatter Lady Nagant's rifle, ending the fight. Other moves include Froppy Style. Upon activation, Deku shoots a Black Whip tendril out of his mouth, allowing him to move when both of his arms are broken. Interestingly, Banjo's Black Whip is one of the major quirks that enables Deku's survival when Danger Sense was stolen by Shigaraki. Combined with Fa-Jin, he can use Black Whip to flex and extend his muscles manually to unleash a blast of air for a powerful Delaware smash, delaying the destructive force of decay. After becoming immobilized by the effects of Gear Shift, Deku also uses Black Whip to reinforce his tendons and muscles from the inside, which shows up as black coils right through his skin. This move, Deku Overlay, allows Deku to use Black Whip to force his beaten, busted up body to keep moving. Iin Taiotai, also known as Smoke Eater, was the 6th user of One For All and a former pro hero. On top of One For All, Iin had his own quirk called Smoke Screen. It allowed him to release thick clouds of purple smoke from his body, covering a wide area and hiding both himself and his allies from view. The smoke was great for surprise attacks and confusion, but it had no real offensive power. One of its main drawbacks is that it also poses a risk to its user. If Iin released too much smoke, it could backfire, making it hard for him to see or move. The quirk was also weaker in humid weather, like rain, and could be blown away by strong shockwaves. Because of these limits, Iin admitted that Smokescreen couldn't be developed into an ultimate move. During Deku's battles, Iin's quirk became a valuable support tool. One of the most impressive times he used it was in his rematch against Muscular after the villain escaped from Tartarus. He also used Smokescreen during his fight against Lady Nagant. Deku unleashed a full blast of purple smoke to buy time to charge up Fa-Jin. It was a risky plan since Lady Nagant was a fast, long-range sniper who could attack from anywhere. Iin worried that once Deku stepped out of the smoke, he'd be an easy target. But Deku used it smartly. While the area was covered in smoke, he sent out decoys in different directions to track Lady Nagant's location through her shots. Then he slipped into a nearby building at the edge of the smoke screen, ran up the stairs, and used the advantage to surprise her. When Shigaraki managed to steal Shinamori's vestige and Danger Sense, Iin was the first to panic. He suggests they should prioritize Deku's own safety and retreat. With Shigaraki stealing Danger Sense, he could now more easily touch Deku and snatch more of their powers. If that happens, it'll be the end for all of them. At times, Iin even called his own quirk the weakest among all the One For All abilities and said he should be the first to be sacrificed. But when Deku used Smokescreen creatively to buy time, and shoot Black Whips underground for his anti-decay strategy against Shigaraki, Iin was shocked and deeply moved by how much Deku respected his quirk. Nana Shimura. Nana Shimura was the 7th user of One For All. She was All Might's mentor and the grandmother of Tenko Shimura, better known as Shigaraki. Nana was a kind woman with a strong sense of justice. Though both her parents were eliminated in the past, she believed a true hero should always smile, as if to say, I'm A-okay. She believed that the people who could still smile, even in dark times, were the strongest of all. At one point, Nana fought alongside Iin against All For One. During that battle, Iin was fatally wounded, divided into 2 pieces, but managed to pass on One For All by giving Nana some of his hair with a smile before he died. As a mother and wife, Nana married someone and had a son named Kotaro Shimura. They had a close relationship, but when her husband was finished off by a villain, Nana made a painful decision. To protect Kotaro from All For One, she placed him in foster care, erased her records, and cut all ties so that All For One could never find him. She made Gran Torino and All Might promise to never contact her son, even if something bad happens to her. Inside the Vestige world, Nana once tested Deku's resolve, asking if he could put an end to Shigaraki. She admitted that she feared what Shigaraki had become and felt responsible for his descent into evil. When Deku told her he wanted to save Shigaraki, seeing him as a crying boy inside, Nana cried tears of relief and gratitude. Nana's original quirk, Float, lets her suspend herself in midair. Combined with the strength of One For All, she could fly at incredible speeds. She often used it alongside Gran Torino, who is known as the fastest hero of his time, to battle against villains. Deku first unlocked Float during the Paranormal Liberation War. When Shigaraki used his decay to destroy everything around him, Deku activated Float to lift heroes such as Gran Torino, Todoroki, Endeavor, and others out of harm's way. During the final battle against Shigaraki, Float was the last quirk to be transferred into him. Basically, Nana's essence was rejected, likely due to her emotional weakness. Inside Shigaraki's memories, Nana and Deku saw his past. When Nana realized that Kotaro still kept their old family picture, she wept with happiness. Unfortunately, her joy turned to pain when she saw that Kotaro had beaten his son for seeing that picture and wanting to become a hero like his grandmother. Kotaro said the woman in the picture wasn't his mother, but a monster who had abandoned her child. To him, heroes were people who hurt their families for the sake of strangers, a wound that would later pass down to Shigaraki himself. According to All For One, Nana died a pathetic death, a cruel thing he says to provoke All Might. Before Nana dies, she buys time for Gran Torino and All Might to escape. All Might, whose real name is Toshinori Yagi, is the former #1 pro hero and the symbol of peace. He was the 8th user, and the first among them to be born quirkless. Known for saving people with a smile and his famous line, "I am here," All Might is respected as a top-class hero across the whole world. All Might inherited One For All from Nana Shimura. This quirk allowed him to stockpile immense power, enhancing all his physical abilities to superhuman levels. Unlike other users, All Might mastered One For All almost instantly thanks to his naturally tough body. According to Gran Torino, who became All Might's teacher because he promised Nana he'd train him, All Might was so talented that he quickly adapted to the quirk. All Might was unique among the users because he could transform his body, changing from a skinny man into a massive muscular hero to hide his identity. He held One For All longer than any other user. While most of them either died fighting All For One or couldn't handle the quirk's burden, All Might's quirkless body could hold its full power without breaking down. As the wielder of One For All Might is known for his powerful smash attacks, signature moves that channel his immense strength into explosive bursts of energy. These attacks are often named after different US states. His main moves include Detroit Smash, Texas Smash, Carolina Smash, California Smash, and a whole lot more. He can also unleash the powerful double Detroit Smash with Deku, or his ultimate move, the United States of Smash, a devastating finishing blow that embodies the full might of One For All. Each smash not only delivers overwhelming force, but also creates massive shockwaves capable of clearing entire city blocks or changing the weather. Throughout his career, All Might was almost undefeated. He basically fought to be the pillar for society, saving lives and taking down criminals. However, his body began to weaken after his first battle with All For One, which left his stomach and lungs in terrible shape. Because of that, he could only use One For All for a few hours a day before it started taking a toll on him. He eventually became a teacher at UA High School to find a worthy successor. Despite his injuries, he managed to defeat All For One twice. But after their rematch, the last ember of One For All inside him faded away, leaving him quirkless once again. This makes All Might unable to hold his muscles for even a few seconds. Even without his power, All Might continued to fight using the armored All Might support suit. The armor, made of detachable metal plates, connects to his car, Hercules, which he poured most of his fortune into. Though untested and unsafe, it allowed him to imitate the quirks of his students, combining their abilities to fight All For One during the final war. All Might could use moves inspired by Earphone Jack, Momo's creation, Dark Shadow, Mina's Great Balls, and even Shoot-style Smash, combining the abilities of Black Whip, Charge Bolt, Cellophane, and Sugar Man. All Might can coat his body using Invisible Girl's Warp Refraction to shield himself from the laser's heat, or block some attacks using Tailman's strength. Nana once said he was even more unhinged than All For One, mad enough to defeat him. As a child, All Might admired comic book heroes like Anpanman, and dreamed of making a world where everyone could smile. He met Nana when she defeated some thugs. He then follows Nana, convincing her to let him be her pupil and assistant. which Nana viewed as ridiculous since All Might is quirkless. After losing his family, All Might vowed to end the cycle of hatred and fear that plagued society. That's how the idea of becoming the symbol of peace was born. Even after retiring, All Might continues to look after Deku, feeling responsible for placing such a heavy burden on his shoulders. When Deku went off alone to hunt villains after the Tartarus breakout, All Might chased after him in Hercules. According to Gran Torino, All Might and Deku are the same kind of hero, both charging headfirst without thinking. Izuku Midoriya, also known as Deku, is the main protagonist of My Hero Academia. As a child, he idolized heroes and dreamed of becoming one like his favorite hero, All Might. But while other kids his age began manifesting their quirks, Deku stayed quirkless. One day, Deku got caught in a villain's attack. When he saw Bakugo trapped by the sludge villain, Deku rushed in to save him without thinking. Even though he had no powers, Deku's body simply moved on its own. All Might witnessed this and decided that Deku had what it takes to be a hero. He revealed the secret of One For All and offered to make Deku his successor. Under All Might's training, Deku strengthened his body by hauling and clearing piles of junk, preparing to inherit All Might's quirk. After eating a strand of All Might's hair, Deku officially became the 9th and final user of One For All. After enrolling in UA High School, Deku joined Class 1A, made new friends, and faced powerful villains such as the League of Villains, the Nomus, and All For One. Though Deku started as a nickname Bakugo used to mock him, Deku redefined it as a name symbolizing do your best, or never give up. Initially, Deku had little control over One For All and could only use 100% in short bursts, breaking his bones every time. To limit the damage, he focused power into specific fingers and limbs. He also used visualization techniques, like imagining One For All as an egg heating in a microwave to help control its output. During his internship with Gran Torino, Deku developed Full Cowl, allowing him to spread a small percentage of One For All throughout his body, increasing his speed and strength evenly. Over time, he improved from using 5% safely to as much as 45%, and with experience, began mastering his quirks of past One For All users. Like All Might, Deku developed a variety of smash techniques powered by One For All. His signature moves include Detroit Smash, Delaware Smash, St. Louis Smash Air Force, Double Detroit Smash, and more. At 100%, Deku can unleash the 100% Detroit Smash. His ultimate move is the 1,000,000% Delaware Detroit Smash, which combines two high-impact attacks. A full-handed Delaware Smash, followed by a Detroit Smash, creating a blast powerful enough to crater stone and defeat Muscular. One of Deku's most impressive uses of One For All happens during the fight with Overhaul. Deku developed the Full Cowl Shoot style, a combat technique that channels power through his legs instead of his arms. During his fight with Overhaul, he unlocked Full Cowl 100%, granting him extreme speed and power that rivaled All Might's. With Eri, he could maintain this form since her Rewind quirk healed his body continuously. Alongside his raw strength, Deku uses support gear like his Iron Souls, Air Force gloves, and Mid Gauntlet, allowing him to safely use higher percentages of One For All without severe injury. Even without One For All, Deku's respect for other heroes and their quirks never faded. His hero notebooks, filled with detailed notes on everyone's powers, symbolize how much he loves meta abilities. Due to this vast respect and admiration, he was able to use the quirks of past users creatively. By securing the cooperation of all successors before the final war, Deku mastered every quirk within One For All and combined them to create devastating ultimate moves. Despite transferring One For All and its quirk to Shigaraki in order to defeat him, Deku still carried Yoichi's final embers within his quirkless body. In the Vestige realm, those embers helped him and the previous users destroy All For One completely. During the battle, Deku lost both of his arms due to Shigaraki's decay, but thanks to Eri's horn, he was eventually healed. After the final war, Deku became a teacher at UA High. Over the years, the remaining embers of One For All within him ultimately died. Fortunately, with new advancements in hero technology, Deku became an official hero alongside his former classmates, eventually rising to become the number 4 pro hero. Using the data All Might obtained from his battle against All For One, Melissa Shield and Mei Hatsume created Deku's new hero suit. This was a project funded by Deku's former classmates and led by Bakugo himself. Unlike his custom Zeta, this suit can be stored compactly as a briefcase. Naturally, this allows Deku to use multiple abilities. Katsuki Bakugo. In My Hero Academia Heroes Rising, Bakugo temporarily becomes a wielder of One For All. During the movie's final battle against Nine, Deku realized that defeating the villains was impossible with his current strength alone. Desperate to protect Katsume and Maharo, Deku made a split-second decision to transfer One For All to Bakugo. With One For All coursing through his body, Bakugo's physical abilities were boosted to superhuman levels. His stats all skyrocketed, and his quirk reached new destructive potential. By using One For All's energy to enhance explosions, Bakugo's blasts became powerful enough to melt solid rock into lava, and create massive craters with every detonation. Despite having no training with One For All, Bakugo instinctively activated full Cal at 100%, fighting in perfect sync with Deku. The two unleashed their combined Detroit Smash against 9, dealing devastating damage, but also destroying their arms in the process. After the battle, the quirk eventually returned to Deku's body. Tomura Shigaraki. Although Deku is the final true wielder of One For All, Shigaraki gained access to the quirk after stealing it through All For One's ability. During their final battle, Deku transferred every quirk from One For All into Shigaraki, damaging parts of his corrupted core while making each quirk unusable. Because the quirk was destroyed immediately after entering him, Shigaraki never actually used One For All. However, the immense power cultivated by 9 generations strained his body and caused it to break apart. Before this moment, All Might discovered that Shigaraki carried a mental scar from his fight with Star and Stripe. Kudo suggested using One For All to attack that scar from within. He compared it to Bakugo throwing something straight at Deku's face. An intense, damaging transfer that could even break the quirk being passed. Normally, transferring One For All would let Shigaraki use its abilities, like how he wants access to Danger Sense. But this time, Kudo planned a forceful transfer that could wound or destroy the quirks instead. Iin offered to go first, but Kudo insisted on doing it himself. If Gear Shift was transferred to Shigaraki, Deku would lose the recoil, and if Shigaraki somehow used it, the backlash would hit him instead. Blood would act as the transfer agent, but because of Shigaraki's regeneration, it had to happen in the instant of impact. Using Smokescreen to hide, Deku got close and slammed Gear Shift into Shigaraki. Before Shigaraki could control Kudo's quirk, the impact struck his mental scar. Gear Shift's recoil hit Shigaraki hard, and both he and Deku saw flashes of each other's memories. As Shigaraki's absolute defense tried to adapt, Deku charged again. Shigaraki resisted the transfer through his willpower, but Iin's vestige went through and sacrificed himself to pierce deeper into the scar. Deku then pushed nearly all remaining vestiges into Shigaraki's core, causing severe internal damage. Nana was the only one repelled because of her conflicted emotions toward her grandson. Basically, this forced transfer shattered the original One For All quirk. As the core broke apart, Deku finally reached Tenko Shimura's spirit inside Shigaraki. This moment allowed Deku and Nana to enter Shigaraki's true origin, his fragile inner self. Inside that core, they could finally strike at the heart of Tenko Shimura. And that's every One For All user explained. Which of these heroes is your favorite wielder of One For All? Drop your picks in the comments, and if you want more anime simply explained, click the videos on your screen now.